I can't remember if I've talked about this to you, Milo, before. Please stop me if I have. But in terms of like offerings to the spirit world, did I ever tell you the funniest series of offerings to the spirit world I have seen in my various travels?
Okay, no.
Which is...
This is quite a niche topic. I think it's amazing that over years of knowing each other, we've never broached it.
In Naples, there is... because you know how like southern Italy is basically still pagan, right?
Yeah. Pagan and the mafia.
Yeah, it's
the two religions.
Well, it's like it's like they reskinned paganism to be Catholic. So it's like instead of having
that's kind of Catholicism in general, to be honest.
Catholicism is very magical.
Yeah. You have different levels of sort of paganism versus high church stuff, right? In southern Italy, there's a lot of paganism, a very thin gloss of like actual Catholicism, or like thin gloss of like high church sort of officialdom, right? And so in Naples, there's one church that's like the Church of the Dead, and newly dead people, newly deads, in Naples, they'll be like interred down there, and then they will be
likely place for them to be.
Yeah, but like they'll just there's this pits of like bones, but then pictures of people with little shelves on it, and then people will give like iPhones to the pictures.
Okay.
Oh,
yeah, like gadgets and
Dr.
convenience.
Rosso, take his bone-to-bone story.
Dr. Rosso, very funny. So they'd be like, oh yeah, well, I've given my dear departed Nona, I have a pair of Apple AirPod Pros that I'm leaving her to take into the next life.
Okay, are these new things, or is this just like a recycling scheme?
Yeah,
like a pharaoh.
Brand new in shrink wrap. Like you'd go, you could like, they're not going to use those.
Will
I could
Nona
probably
know how to use the headphones, or will Nona need help?
You start getting annoying Ouija board calls at all hours of the night, being like, I can't get these to connect. How do I? She's like got Microsoft Word open and she's trying to Skype someone.
Keeps playing Coldplay.
How can I connect my AirPods to the printer? And he's like, oh my God, even in death.
Why is my phone upside down?
What's the cloud? You're in the cloud.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Have you ever been to the tomb of the Capuchin monks?
I couldn't be in there for more than a few minutes because I found the proximity to like, I find it really upsetting to like remember that I have a skeleton or blood.
You are like absolutely in the opposite corner of the Matrix to Marjolein.
I know. If I could cut myself and have a little look and then seal it back up again, I'd do that every day.
Just checking it's all still there, really.
Just want to watch it happen.
I want to see if there's a vase in there. I went there and I remember, because obviously for people who haven't been there, it's just like all of the dead monks, their skeletons are just like all over the walls and ceiling of it in like various ornate patterns. So there's like a chandelier made out of bones. There's like a model of the crucifixion made out of bones. Like it's crazy, but it's so funny because then you go through and there's like various like informational things, and then you kind of get to the end and you're like, well, I bet they're going to have a hell of an explanation as to why they did this. It doesn't seem very Catholic, given that Catholics are like, you have to leave the body intact so that Jesus can bring you back to life at the resurrection. Like they've just given him like the world's hardest million-piece jigsaw puzzle to do.
Do you think they saw Beauty and the Beast and were like, we'd be household objects in the next life?
I'm going to be a chandelier. Yeah, I'm going to be a singing chandelier, and I'm going to look after this woman who's shagging a big dog. And then at the end, it's just like, yeah, they just kind of felt kind of random one day, and they just started doing it. And then it's like, what? You've got to come up with, even if that is what happened, you've got to come up with a better reason than that.
Let us do it and there be legends.
It would have all started with like a wobbly table, and they're like, can we fix this wobble? And somebody just slid a scapula under it, on one of the legs. And like, actually, that's quite handy, those old bones.
Randy, we do things a little bit differently, okay? That's crazy. No explanation.
Yeah, just like, they just did it. I just thought it would be cool.
What are we going to do? Fuck? We're monks.
How old are the bones?
They vary. I think the oldest ones are like a few hundred years old.
Oh, so that's kind of recent, though. That's not recent.
Are they still up to it?
I think it's just kind of like a museum now. It's still attached to a monastery, but I don't think I think there's probably laws against it now.
Imagine them making more modern day items of the bones.
Oh, an iPhone. The iBone.
Oh, very good.
That would be awesome. A phone case made out of a monk's bones.
Jesus Christ.
There you go. That's on brand for you.
When the friars arrived at the church in 1631, they brought 300 cartloads of the remains of deceased friars from their previous area.
They brought a lot of deceased friars.
So they brought 300 just like skeletons with them. The 300 cartloads of skeletons from their previous like site.
Call back to Jared Butler. Those 300 monks could have held off. Was it Xerxes' army?
Yeah. They were very concerned about spiders, and they heard that spiders are afraid of skeletons. Unfortunately, they couldn't have been more wrong. Spiders love skeletons.
Oh, also, it's very funny. From 1851 to 1852, women were not allowed in the crypt. There was 1 year.
They were up to some stuff in there that year.
And they were like, get the hose out of here. One year. We need 1 year, guys only. Here in the
It was
bone
the boys' year in the monastery.
It's like every time a certain comet appears, it's boys' year in the monastery. There's also they have the crypt of the pelvises that's made entirely of pelvises.
Oh my goodness.
Wow! In honor, they should get Elvis's pelvis in there. They should do it.
Probably the most famous of pelvises.
Probably, yeah, I would say so. Apart from, I don't know, the Virgin Mary's. Who's got a more famous pelvis?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm sure that is on display somewhere, to be fair, or at least something that's claimed to be it. Actually, speaking of Elvis and also dead bodies,
What?
The first time I went to, it was the second time I went to Melbourne. I went and had a walk around Melbourne Cemetery, and there is a huge shrine to Elvis there, like hilariously huge, like very ornate. And then I went up and looked at it, and I was like, oh, does Elvis have some connection to Melbourne that I don't know about? The answer is no. There was just quite an active Elvis Presley fan club in Melbourne who decided to fund this, it's almost like a full-on mausoleum, but just with no body in it.
Yeah,
Elvis
Milo,
Presley.
it's called Hillsong, okay?
I love Jesus, Mama.
There's some weird fandoms. ABBA, like Australia loves ABBA too. Australia's obsessed with ABBA.
Well, what does the A stand for?
Well, what?
Australia, Brisbane.
Australia, Brisbane.
Bloody Australia.
Bloody Australia. We recognised it. They were paying tribute to us. Yes, and there was some kind of insane Elvis fandom as well. Quite a lot of. There's the Elvis Festival that happens every year in a town called Parkes in New South Wales. Yeah,
They know he's
Elvis
dead.
impersonators will go there. They'll dress up. They'll celebrate the works.
Tom, I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but it seems weird that Australians are fans of anything. Anything you named, if it's big in Australia, I'd be like, that's baffling. Why? It's like I can't imagine. Can you imagine, for example, like an Australian biker gang? I sure can't. Right?
Oh, it's funny that you bring that up because Australia actually bizarrely is like the homeland of the biker gang. It's like the only place I know of where biker gangs still exist.
Oh, and New Zealand. New Zealand's big time biker gang place.
Yeah. Because in America they're kind of passe, but in Australia that's like the main criminal gangs,
Yes,
right?
we call them bikies.
Yeah.
Yes.
You give them the cutest name ever. It's
the bikos.
That's what I mean. Oh, a couple of vroom boys were coming through with.
The thing about motorbikes is they're quite a green method of transportation. They're quite fuel efficient.
Even though it's true, I can't imagine a bunch of Australians doing like Sons of Anarchy shit. It just doesn't make sense to me. By the way, biker gangs are also the biggest form of organized crime in Canada as well.
No.
Oh.
Yeah. The Hells Angels have a nightclub in Toronto that is on the corner of College and Spadina. That's just like a permanent construction site that is like you go in, you knock on the door, and a guy lets you in, and it's like a pool table. All the windows are boarded up. You can do like kind of whatever you want in there, but it's just full of bikers. And so if you every bar in Toronto and most clubs have to close at like 2 a.m, so there's a constant demand for after hours places. And so like a lot of people who are sort of trying to go out in central Toronto, which I hear is like harder and harder. I haven't been in a very long time, will just end up washed into this like construction site that's been a construction site for 20 years and is run by the Hells Angels.
Canadian biker gang is a very funny thing to think about.
Well, I'll tell you what crazy thing, Milo, is a lot of them are Quebecois and they're deeply involved in the running of Montreal.
These pannier bags are full of illicit maple syrup. I'm riding for the border.
Yeah, there we
I
go.
once had a wild experience with some Hells Angels.
Okay.
Because it was
But
when
these actual angels from hell, because I'm just, you dig a big hole in Shetland and light some candles.
No, it's when I lived in Amsterdam for a year, and then my favorite pub in Amsterdam was Excalibur, which is like.
Okay.
Have you been to Excalibur?
No.
It's in the middle of the red light district, but it's like it's got 3 themes. It's a biker bar / heavy metal bar / medieval themed bar. It's incredible.
There's a dildo there stuck in one of those realistic asses, and whoever can pull it out gets a free shot.
It's essentially, yeah. And I was just drinking there one day waiting for my boyfriend at the time, and then we were just going to drink in the bar. And all these bikers came in and sat next to me, and they were the Finnish Hells Angels, like a chapter from Finland. And I was like, oh, cool. And I'd just been playing, because I used to play in a metal band, and I'd just been playing a bikers rally that summer in Shetland. So I started speaking to them about their bikes and stuff, and about if they go to rallies, and they're like, oh, because you have to be invited to the Shetland one. They're like, we've never been invited. And it never occurred to me then why maybe Shetland hadn't invited, the Finnish Hells Angels. I was like, oh, I had a lovely time. You really should go. It's awful fine. And then we're just sitting speaking, and then they said, we're having a party tonight. Do you want to come? And I was like, no way, that sounds really fun. And then the leader was like, you can come on the back of my bike. And I was like, oh, that seemed like an honor. I was like, oh, cool. He's like, yeah, we've got this big shed out of town. We're having a party. You come with me. You'll be my guest. And I was like, that sounds lovely. I just need to, I'm meant to be meeting my boyfriend. Can he come too? And they're like, yeah, of course he can come too. And I was like, these are lovely boys. Like, why do people ever speak bad of, gangs? And
That's funny. We've got this big shed on the edge of town.
And then my boyfriend arrived, who was like the same height as me, even scrawnier than I was. And he came in, and I was like, oh, hey, meet my new friends. They're going to take us to a party. But I needed to pee. And the pub is a bit rough, so you have to get a key to be allowed to use the toilet, and you have to return the key. So I got the key, and I went and peed. And when I left the toilet, my boyfriend was like outside the toilet door just waiting for me, like, we have to run now. We have to get the fuck out of here. We have to go. And I was like, why? And he said, as soon as I went upstairs to the toilet, they all turned and like surrounded him and were like, you are going to turn around and walk out of this pub and leave her with us.
Oh my.
And he's like, what? He's like, you are going to turn and walk out of this pub and leave her with us. So he pretended to do that, snuck back in, came to the toilets, grabbed me. We ran down. I'd like throw the keys to the stairs at the bar, and we like ran and like shaking. Our hands were like shaking as we were trying to like unlock our little push bikes and cycle away. But I wonder
That's
what
the
would have
trouble with a
happened.
push bike, a lot slower than a motorbike.
I know. I would psych up the Hells Angels. But I'm always like, would I
They're
become...
the Dutch Hells Angels, so they're actually on push bikes. Like, ding, 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 ding.
It was the Finnish ones. Apparently they're like pretty wild. But yeah, I was like, I wonder if I would have had a bad time, or if I would have become like the queen of the gang.